And I want to actually start this episode by like a simple message because there's actually something I don't or I cannot understand. And it's very, very often that it is data protection officers still up to date. It's like still today, they're running around in companies trying to, trying to tell people that privacy matters. And then I genuinely ask myself that, Amar, do you really think that people don't understand that their privacy does matter? Or are perhaps data protection officers not doing the right job? And then if I just think about a step further and I feel like, okay, so if data protection officers are not doing such a good job, maybe they don't know how to do the job. Like what is the one thing that they can actually look up to? And the truth is that it is the data protection supervisory authorities. And what do they have to look up to? Usually the GDPR. Like the GDPR is like, for me personally, not always, by the way. Like I absolutely hated GDPR and data protection. When I was a team leader, I was a call center agent for a global international charity. And that was like the first time I actually heard the word GDPR when I was working in the call center agent. Exactly. Like I would sign these forms, I would go on the websites, I would click away the cookie banners. But I, as a law student, as somebody who was born and bred in Germany, I never knew that there's something called the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. And I've been to the doctors many times. Like you probably, if you're not a lawyer or like if you're just a normal person, I'm not saying lawyers are not normal people or they're like extra people. I'm just saying that if you don't have the GDPR expertise, you will still understand that the form you're signing in the doctor's office has something to do with data protection. I did not know that because I did not pay attention to these things. So I was probably the last person, who would like care about data protection or care about privacy or about especially my privacy, because as a teenager, who am I really? Like, I don't have any money. You can have my credit card details. You're not going to get very far, like nobody cares about my date of birth and so on, these things. And like data protection genuinely never mattered to me. And then I was in this call center and the first time I actually heard, that was in the UK in Manchester. And the first time I heard this word GDPR, and they told me, make sure before you call somebody, make sure the GDPR, like on the Salesforce system, you could see if they have opted in or opted out. So if somebody would have opted out and then you couldn't call them for a cold call for them to make a donation because I was working for a charity. So there I was like, okay, there is actually a law forbids companies to call other people if they haven't opted in. Like at that point still, it wasn't really a big thing. It was just, okay, I acknowledge that there's a GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. And then I lived my life I graduated from law, and then I got into my first job in data protection because I wanted to move back to Germany, and the only thing I actually knew was GDPR. The only European concept, because I studied law in the UK. So I'm very, very like, my education is in the law of England and Wales, not even Scottish law, by the way. The law of England and Wales, because Scottish law is separate, although it's all the UK. Like it's a bit messy. Like I shouldn't say that, but like the reputation of the UK anyway. So I came to Germany because I knew this concept of GDPR. I understood that it is like a European concept that is actually like a European law. So I have a law degree. I can probably do something. The GDPR is written all in English. The original language of the GDPR is English. So I will get far somewhere. And my first job was actually in a law firm. And then I started to put some attention to things which happen in life. And I want to tell a story here when I went to New York. And I'm landing in JFK. And by the way, at this point, I'm still working for this law firm. And I'm a GDPR and I'm supposed to be a data protection officer for these huge companies, and I don't care about data protection. And the reason I'm telling this is actually because most data protection officers are still or remain in that middle point. Like they don't care about privacy or the data protection. It hasn't hit them hard yet in life. And whereas sometimes think, okay, you have to step out especially when you step outside of the boundaries of the European Union, you then realize, okay, how important privacy actually is. Because me personally, even all these data protection lawyers, like who say, Meta is going against this right and going against this right. Like how many people of you really said, I have the right to be forgotten and my data should be deleted? See, there are probably people. But what hit me hard is that I never used one of my GDPR rights ever. Okay, perhaps, Article 15, but for like the right to access. But mainly I use that as well just for, when you have legal battles with the company and you want to make sure that the case takes more time and things like that, then I would use Article 15 is actually a good way to delay a case by 30 days. And by the way, many lawyers use that. But I'm the data protection officer of major telecommunication and electric company, like external one, because I was working for this law firm. I'm still in that feeling where I don't really care about the GDPR in the sense that I don't really care about the GDPR in the sense that it's like everything I can think about, and like I still don't understand that it's a market that's actually an invisible market force and how much of an effect it has on somebody. And then I went to first time to the United States, and I was at this border, and the border officer actually asked me, "Can you like how long are you in New York for?" And I'm just like saying, "Yeah, I'm in New York I have this business to attend to, and I'm here for one day." And they're like, "Okay, you're just here for one day, and you came from Germany, you came from Berlin." That's actually odd. And I agree, like that is actually odd, right? But he closed the door and he was like, "Come with me, and we're going to take you for some questioning." And then they're asking you like, okay, they're going to question you because, they can't imagine why you would go to another country for one day. Anyhow, although like I was there for business and had a visa that would said that as well. Anyway, they like, you guys know the United States, they're probably, you understand the agenda or you understand the story. That is not the point of the story. However, the part of the story is that I did not think much of it. Still, I'm still in that interview room and the guy is asking me, "Can I have a look at your social media?" And that moment actually, by the way, not through law school, not through my career in the call center, not when I was a team leader in the call center, not when I was actually not when I was actually data protection officer for multiple telecommunication companies in Berlin. When I was in New York and that person asked me to open up my social media, that when it hit me, I would love for GDPR to be effective right now. Like that is where the weight of GDPR and the weight of the job I was actually doing came into my realization. So, and that point onwards, I understood, Amr, you can't be the regular DPO. You can't be the regular data protection officer. You just can't. It's not your agenda. You don't care about you don't care about Excel files and documentation that look so complicated and like things that don't even matter to a judge or even a data protection authority, or perhaps a data protection authority, but they would never matter to an audience or all of these things. And I would question myself, okay, why am I doing such a meaningless job? Like I genuinely asked myself in this law firm, why am I doing such a meaningless job? And if it wasn't for that experience, what happened at the New York border control, perhaps I would still be that data protection officer. By the way, I'm not saying everybody is like that. I'm saying for me, that was a turning point where I understood that, okay, privacy matters. And the reason I'm saying it here, or the reason I'm actually making this episode, is because I want to tell people one thing, that if you are living in the European Union or in the GDPR, if you're a marketeer, a business leader, if you are anybody who works with the GDPR, if you have a business, if you have something to do with people and your role depends on lead generation, demand generation, you're a call center agent, you're a team leader, we don't care about the GDPR much, about the cookie banners and so on, because you haven't been there yet. And because you haven't been there yet, but you're right in the middle of the realms of the GDPR where you are protected. Because companies who are compliant, and right now we try to get in touch with reputable, or we try to make business with reputable companies because we understand, okay, they have a lot of experience. But I think the vibes are shifting a lot because now people have understood the value of their data. And if you're living in Europe, perhaps you are living in a safe space. And if you think about Europe being a safe space, as in a safe, Europe having a very safe market dynamics. I mean, think about it, right? Like you know that you can buy something from Romania with your credit card details, and you just know there are enough safety measures and enough technical organizational measures, and you can call somebody in a call center at Sky and give you a credit card, 16-digit credit card details, or you can make a donation and you will know that your data is not going to be compromised to like 95%. And that is a safe zone because you haven't been affected by it yet. But many things, the way they are right now, especially in Europe or in our market, many things, they are the way they are because of the GDPR. Because the GDPR has actually set an umbrella. It's not, don't think about the general data protection regulation as that law that you have to follow, It is, yes, legislation. By the way, it's also a funny story. I heard it many times when I was actually working for the job afterwards, after I had after I was working for this law firm. But I think that's a story for another time, for another episode, where this marketer just told me, that the GDPR is actually a guideline. It's not a guideline, it's a law, but it's not that law, It's it's a law that tells you to do the minimum, and most laws actually tell you to do the minimum. The entire criminal code is just based on think about it, the entire criminal code of all the countries, they're literally based on the minimum moral criterias, understanding of the criterias of any human being in that society. And most laws, like not every law, I understand that, like you can always fight about speeding laws and so on, but we genuinely agree that you shouldn't be going crazy on public roads. Like the general understanding is there. So data protection, GDPR acts as that minimum standard. And if you and that is what I'm gonna say about GDPR compliance. That GDPR compliance is so fundamental that it's nothing to be so proud of. That okay, we are, yes, if you actually create extra measures to show people how the dignity of their privacy matters, or the dignity of their personal data matters to you as a business, then I would say, okay, extra. But the GDPR, as far as the GDPR compliance is concerned, it's the absolute minimum. And I want to share the story with all the data protection officers out there that your job really does matter, because it does not matter up until you have reached, or your colleagues in your company have reached the minimum standard of the GDPR compliance. Because GDPR compliance is just the minimum standard which we want to enjoy as human beings, as protecting our privacy. And what that means, what that minimum compliance actually looks like, and how it should look like, and how the understanding should be with our colleagues in our companies, we're going to make a video about that in the next episode. Today, I just wanted to actually show you guys why this whole privacy stuff matters to me, and what actually the turning point was for me as a person, where I understood that, okay, you know what, Amr, you're not just doing a job for sake of doing a job. You're not just writing privacy statements for sake of having privacy statements. And especially probably the episode afterwards, we're going to probably talk about privacy statements as well. But privacy statements is just one thing which I want to revolutionize, because right now they're not doing the job they should be doing. Like, you cannot tell me, that you have 20 companies, and out of these 20 companies, 19 privacy statements look exactly the same. And they have been probably very expensive as well, because lawyers who write these privacy statements or copy paste them are actually very expensive as well. So I actually want to teach people how to write privacy statement, because I went ahead for myself personally, like just genuinely for myself. When I understood, okay, my job matters that much, what kind of privacy statement do I want to read? Like, if I read a privacy statement, what do I want to know as a consumer? And my vision, hopefully, for one day is definitely that one day we will be at a point of time where most of the privacy statements in the world will be the number one go-to to get information about how much consumer centricity matters to a company for consumers. I hope you like this video, guys, and I hope I could perhaps clarify some of the thought processes I had when I started actually this channel, marketection, or hashtag marketection. That it's a Zusammenspiel in German, we say. It's a playing together. It's a playing together the market space and of consumer rights, because they have to act in harmony. And as long as you're going to be as you're not going to understand that key message, it's very hard to even come near GDPR compliance, because GDPR compliance, I'm going to be honest with you, is the absolute minimum. Have a good evening.